You know, I want to interact with my environment more than any game has ever allowed us to do.
But the idea of going through every door and every nook and cranny,
Creepy, quiet, silent element.
but it's just like, give us that freedom a little bit more.
For one fucking game!
Uber best friends with this person.
It doesn't matter how much I want to play that one game, it's not going to happen. Because, it's just bland.
But if I knew.
I'm Foisco.
And I'm Link584.
And you're listening to
The Podcast.
Hey there, I'm Foisco.
I'm Link584.
And this is the podcast, if you didn't already know.
And we want to talk about the, quote, console wars, unquote. Considering that seems to be, at this time of creating this, a big hot topic. The Xbox One has been announced. The PS4 has been announced. The Wii U is already out. It's the middle of summer 2013. Let's talk about it. I mean, why not? It's coming up.
Yes. I am not a satisfied gaming community. I make up a whole community.
I was gonna say, you mean just a game you're not satisfied with what?
Well, I heard, and I am not a big PlayStation fan, as you may already know. It took us forever to get a PlayStation 3. We barely touched the thing.
But you love the PS2.
Well, I do, because that was the first console, other than the Nintendo 64, that I ever had. Well, actually, the Super Nintendo.
So currently you're not a big PlayStation fan.
No, and I will tell you why. I have maybe not 100, but quite a few PlayStation 2 titles, which since the release of the PlayStation 3, I could not play those titles on my PS3. I was not introduced to Xbox until I met dear Jordan over here. And the first game he let me play on that would actually be GTA 4, and it was, like, amazing. But
your mind was blown.
Yeah, it really was. And ever since then, I've kind of been a real big fan of the Xbox. He let me borrow his before I got my own, and I took it home, I played it, I loved it. And, okay, so, as I've said, I really enjoy the Xbox 360. And with the PS4 coming out now, there's no backwards compatibility for that one. So all the very select titles that we have for the PS3 are now
not going to be usable on the PS4.
Right. They're useless with the new console. Okay? And I don't know if you gamers out there or you listeners have had this problem, but I mean, we're 20-somethings. We don't have our own household right now. We're saving up money for that. We don't have a lot of room to display all of these new consoles. So why can't these companies just listen to us when we say that we want backwards compatibility? With the Xbox One coming out, I was so excited. I'm just like, oh my god, this is going to be awesome. I saw it and wow, heartbroken. I have so many Xbox games that now I will have to keep my Xbox 360 and an Xbox One to play. I mean, everybody all goes off about that you have to pay a subscription for your used game and whatever, and I don't care. I want backwards compatibility. Why should I buy a new product if all of the games that I know and love are going to be on my 360?
Another thing I heard too was that all your Xbox arcade titles aren't going to be downloadable on those aren't transferable either.
So what?
Which is weird. Those are downloads.
I know. So, I mean,
does that mean those are not going to be supported in the new marketplace, or are they just somehow coded differently? I thought a download would be a download, but I guess not. I mean, it's just like I thought a disc would be a disc, but their disc reader, I imagine, is different. But it's like if you download something on the PC versus downloading something on another PC, the download still works regardless. Like you see, like, oh, this is downloadable on Vista, this is downloadable on Windows 7, Windows 8, but I guess, is it too complicated for whatever OS is on the Xbox One that it can't download the old titles again? Because I imagine that marketplace is still going to exist unless they're not going to exist.
You know what question I have? If this is supposed to be a competitive console war, and oh, this is the technology of the future. Then why can't you make technology of the future work with the technology now? Isn't that supposed to be futuristic where everything kind of combines into one and meshes and makes a really awesome freaking product?
It's like each company is making a war on themselves against us.
It's like, why should I continue to be a gamer? Why should I support your company if you don't give me, the consumer, what I want? Isn't that the whole point of making a product to sell to the consumer? And if the consumer doesn't like it, then, well, shit, you're out of customers then.
Yeah, you take away your selling points, then how are you going to sell it?
Learn your demographic. I mean, I know that you guys are heavy gamers like me, otherwise you wouldn't be in the console wars. You wouldn't be working with Microsoft and with Sony and with Nintendo.
Well, that's not true necessarily anymore, because now it sounds
Well,
like it's getting
that's
more.
true.
It sounds like it's getting more businessy, which means it sounds like there's been new people introduced. Like maybe the people who were gamers didn't like some of the changes that were going on and actually left, and now it's getting worse because you're having business people that don't care about the games as much run the company. Because you have to remember, these companies like Sony and Microsoft, they don't make as many games themselves as much as it is the third-party developers. Nintendo makes a lot of in-house games, and those are their biggest sellers. They have a hard time with the third-party support. These companies mostly rely on the third-party support. So unless they're talking with all these third parties and really working with these other people, they could be all suits for all we know, just dressed up making these consoles, because they're not too concerned with games because they're not making them themselves. So they're kind of, you see what I mean?
I do, but what I want to know is if they're making these products for the games, they must have someone saying, oh, nobody's going to like this. Are they, like, going to the streets and getting, like, I don't know if this is the right word, a consensus? Like, are they getting, like, real life input from real life gamers? Like,
I don't think that's it. I think it's there's a few of the things that have been announced, like with the Xbox One. They talk, if you're not familiar with how the whole used game things is going to work, with how you have a thing tied to it and then you have to pay a code, just do a little research first about the Xbox One and then come back to this and look up what's happening with the used games. Well, when it comes down to that, for example, that doesn't affect the third-party developers in a bad way or anything like that. The new terms about the used games allow the companies that make the games and the distributor, so an Xbox and the third-party people, they're going to get more revenue now because you'll be more encouraged to buy a new game versus a used one, which in part does two things. One, it of course annoys us. That's the first reaction. But two, that means if let's say we all continue to buy games and we buy them all new now instead of used, and we're willing to cough it up, and let's say nothing changes there except we're all annoyed and we stuff it, now the companies that create the games that we like are going to have more money to be able to create those games that we love. And a lot of us complain and say, oh, there's bringing out a lot of games that have a poor value to them, and people are sometimes just pushing games out for the sake of getting it out ahead of time. Well, part of it maybe is they don't have enough resources. Some of the companies like Call of Duty obviously do, but some of the third-party companies, some, let's say even of the smaller to medium ones that aren't as well known, they'll benefit a lot from getting all this profit now, instead of saying, okay, half the people bought this game used and we saw none of that profit. If the same people bought it and now they were all new, those smaller companies can become medium companies, and those medium companies can become larger companies. Or those medium companies can stay medium companies but now have more money than ever before to be able to put more production value and stay true to themselves and make a higher quality game because they'll have the funds to do so. So it's actually a good thing from a business perspective. You'd actually want to do the same thing if you were losing a lot of money to used game sales. So if you put your position around, you realize what they're doing is logical from a business point of view on not just the higher end companies, but the medium and low end ones as well.
okay, well, how about this? Couldn't, like, Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo and all of those like set up their own little store, which I guess would kind of put GameStop out of business. Maybe. I don't know. I didn't take a business class, all right? So don't judge me. But if they all set up a store, like 'cause you can go to like xbox.com and buy like Microsoft points, for example, right? So why doesn't like Microsoft and Sony and I already said this, set up a store where you can sell or trade in your games instead of using GameStop?
Well, Microsoft's doing that.
What do you mean?
Well, they're going to have the thing where you can trade in games, and they'll take the code and your ability to run the game on your hard drive. They'll completely wipe it off from your system. And you could trade in your game, and you'll get a credit. And then the next person to purchase that game has to pay a fee, or whoever it is, like GameStop, will have to pay a fee. So I mean, there's going to be a system in place, and we don't fully know what it is. But you will still be able to trade in your games.
But the point is that the money wouldn't be going to GameStop, thank you. But Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo could distribute the money that, are purchased from their used sales to the game developers. They don't have to charge money. It just seems like they're being greedy.
Well, it's not necessarily being greedy. It's like I said, they're every time we buy a used game, we almost exclusively buy used games. We haven't supported any of the companies that make the games that we love in a long time.
That's not true.
There's only a very few. Out of, let's say, maybe the past 50 games, maybe 6 or 7 of them were actually new. Because we do buy 2 used, get 1 free almost every year, twice a year. In fact, we have such a backlog of games. Like, I haven't even played Red Dead Redemption, and I bought that used about a year and a half ago.
But there has to be a better way where they could put games up online, download it to your hard drive, you have it forever, but that money would still go to the company, wouldn't it? Like, if we sold, say I took Red Dead Redemption and sold it to the company, to Microsoft, okay? All right, and then I purchased another GTA 6, whatever, GTA 5, whatever the new one is. And they could give that money, like that used money, like to the company. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, Microsoft takes in the used games. I buy a used game from Microsoft, and they send the money that I spent to the company. I mean, of course, it would kind of eliminate GameStop, but I mean, your company, your game suppliers, whatever you want to call them, would still be receiving the money from the used games. It would just be cheaper money.
I think the best thing is to cut out the middleman, like GameStop, to a
Which
degree.
Sucks.
It's to a degree. I think there's 2 things here. We're dealing with a future of digital downloads versus back in the day that was such an unheard of thing. The technology didn't exist. I think just like buying titles off of the Xbox Marketplace, you can buy, for example, Oblivion, a full game, not just an indie game, right off their marketplace. There's tons of them now. Usually, the newer games don't get put up there for at least a year or 2.
Question.
So why don't you just put them directly on there, let's say at launch, and by cutting out the middleman, maybe you could actually say, hey, you could go into the store, get a physical copy of the game for $60, or you could digitally download it for maybe $50,
which
because
would
you're cutting
totally save on production cost. Holy hell!
Yeah, you get rid of so you reward the people who are digitally downloading. So then you encourage that more. Because then you cut out the whole making of the CD, the whole doing that, the whole manufacturing process,
shipping and handling, and all that crap.
You don't have to have someone else sell it for you. You put it on there. I mean, especially if we're gonna be Xbox One, it wants us to install our games onto the hard drive.
Yeah.
So why as well make it available right on there. So then that way you can accomplish 2 things. One is we don't have to spend the gas. We don't have to do anything. We just download a game. You can cut out part of the middleman. And by doing that, maybe you could make new games cheaper. Instead of $60, maybe you can make them $50. And if everyone is digitally downloading, if I was told that I could get a newer game for cheaper, that would encourage, because for a lot of my life, games were $50, not $60. And so if you made them $50 again, I think that just at $10 would make a lot of people happy. And then as time goes on, I think one of the things too is companies, I don't know how they price them, but why are all new games 60? If a game comes out and let's say you had something like, if let's say Luigi's Mansion came out today, it's an extremely short game. I think that companies and whoever makes them should have their games priced accordingly.
Well, but isn't it kind of like maybe like say Luigi's Mansion came out, or no, let's use Xbox as a thing. Okay, so say Mass Effect came out. The game really, with all the production cost is, for the game company to make a profit, maybe it's only $45. Maybe it's like a tiny company, let's just say. And then Xbox says, okay, well, we're going to give you $45. We're going to raise it to 60 and we'll get that profit for selling it.
Right, but I mean at the same time they should be scaled accordingly. Like, maybe Xbox and Sony, they have their fee that they put on top of it, but like it should be where there's a lot of games that come out, okay, that are great. Like you have Zelda, Mass Effect. People go out in the hundreds of thousands and they become $1 million seller within a couple weeks. Those are the big ones, and you can always expect people that are going to pay full price for those. But then you have some of these games that are really good, and you say, that's a solid $40 game. That's a good chunk of change, $40. I mean, that's nothing to, sneeze at. That's a good chunk of change. But you say, it's a good $40 game. And so what happens is a game comes out brand new, the trailers were there, the hype was on the way, but then you see the reviews and people say, this is a good solid game, but not enough to spend $60 on. Now, as time goes on, the games go down in price. Depending on how bad or whatever the game is, they go down at different rates. But, for example, a really solid $40 game, it might take half a year to 9 months before it dropped to that price. And so by the time 9 months go by, you're already hyped out for all these other new games, and you're going to give those games your money instead. For example, if the game came out that was really solid for $40, and I said, I don't want to spend that right now. And then in half a year, let's say it went to $40, and then in that half year, a new Zelda came out, or a new Mass Effect. I'm going to spend the $20 more to get that better game. But they could have had my $40 half a year ago, when the hype was there and I was expecting it, before it faded from my memory.
Question. Good point, by the way. Question. If, as I said,
You got distracted because your thing made a sound.
No, I'm trying to articulate my thoughts in a way that will make sense to everybody else.
Oh, don't worry, just spit it out and see what comes out.
Patooey. No, I'm just kidding.
That's gross. I know, that was distracting. My mother was in the background talking about dog food. So, I know that threw you off for a moment.
Yeah, it did.
So just start seeing what comes out, because you said I had a good point about the whole pricing system, that it should be related to
online games. Okay.
Online ones.
Say the new Elder Scrolls game came out and it was priced at $55 because you could buy it online without actually having
the download.
The disc, yes.
Yeah, the downloadable digital download. Yes.
And what if you played it, you beat it, you want to sell it? You could sell it back to the Xbox marketplace, whatever. Maybe for like
$5 credit?
$10 maybe? Because, I mean, it's a digital copy. Yeah, you bought it, you played it. I mean, you're not going to get as much for it.
I don't even know if that's even
like,
something
if that's even possible. But
they could, but I don't see the point in it. It seems like there's no point. Here's one of the things. I think a digital download should be cheaper. Even if I think $10 cheaper is a perfect amount. If a digital download comes out, but also pricing your games accordingly. I think that should be it. Rather, it's not a one size fits all. Let's say Hello Kitty DS Adventure came out for $40, and you say, what? That's ridiculous. But it's worth it for your kid if it was $20 maybe, and she will really enjoy it, like a daughter or something. It should be priced accordingly. And I know that's hard for maybe, a company to decide and say, oh, my game is worth the amount. But I really want to know, why are they all a flat one size fits all, and you gotta wait, and then the hype is gone. That just doesn't make sense to me. I've already forgotten so many games I've wanted because I didn't want to buy it new. I was like, yeah, that seems like a good game when it will be cheaper. And then in the end, so much time has passed, and then I ended up getting it used as a buy two get one because I forgot about it. So I think games should be priced accordingly to what's fair. At least digital downloads should be cheaper. But here's the two things that come out of that. If you buy a digital download, you should not have any trade-in towards it because you downloaded it. There was no effort into really putting it available to download, so there should be no trade-in, but you got it discounted when you initially purchased it. So consider that your trade-in because you got a discount. And as time goes on, if the games become less popular, there should be sales and features and all that stuff. Because that's what is but if you have a disc and it gets scratched and or anything like that, there should still be a physical market for those who want it and for those who don't have a strong internet connection, and you should be able to then be able to trade in a game in your classic sense. So I think those should be the two, either a cheaper digital download or buy a disc version and then be able to trade it in later on. Because also when you trade in a game, when a company sells it to someone else, they legally have to know that it will run for them. So it will work for the customer. So there's still a market for that. Buying used games is an everyday thing. It's fair and it's nice. And those should be the two choices that I think would make everyone happy. Because by digital downloading, you're getting rid of the middleman.
If they digitally downloaded a game, it would have to be significantly reduced from $60. It couldn't be like $50. It'd have to be like $45 to $40.
Why?
Well, because when you buy a game or any item, you pay more for the packaging than you do for the actual item.
Well,
the plastic, the case, the printing up of all the things, the shipping it to the company, all of that just seems like it's more expensive.
But when you're doing it by the hundreds of thousands.
Well, I guess, maybe. But it just seems like it would just have to be like...
And where are all of them made? Like, are the smaller companies getting these packages made in the same place that the bigger companies are? Like,
they probably all send it over to China.
Yeah.
But, okay, and then my second point was, backwards compatibility. I mean, hello, how do I tell Microsoft and Sony, like, why the hell should I buy your product if you're not making a product for me? Right. I'm your demographic. Make it for me, or you're going to lose your business.
Right.
I would be great at working. I could be like an outside consultant, and I would be like, what the hell are you doing? That's a stupid thing to do. Like, I love my PlayStation 2. The reason I didn't give the PlayStation 3 a real try was because, when we first got it, there wasn't really any games that interest me. But I can't even play my PS2 games that I fell in love with in the first place.
And you played them often enough and revisited them.
My mother, God bless her, hated games. But she purchased me 2 games, which happened to be 2 of my favorite games of all time. Top 5. Top 10. 5. I don't know. Anyways.
What were they?
This is not the point.
But what were they?
Gaia Dark Lineage and Beyond Good and Evil. Thank you. And anyways, I can't, all of our stuff is put away now. And I know that you can get Beyond Good and Evil for the Xbox and, whatever. But playing it with an Xbox controller is not the same as playing it the way I first learned it when I was a kid. It's
right. It's like people against emulators.
Like atmosphere. It's like you gotta feel the controller. It's like I could have played that game 10 years ago. But when I pick up that controller and I put the disc in and it tells me to hit X, it's like I'm just being rushed back to as a kid when I first experienced this amazing adventure.
The nostalgia bug.
But I can't play it on my PS3, and my PS2, well, is ancient and just wasn't, built as well. I can't put it into my PS3 and get that same feeling because my PS2 is
Because the PS3 won't take it.
I was a kid, okay? So, I mean, the console wasn't taken care of very well. It wasn't a very good product, I guess. I mean, it was, but I mean,
For a kid to take care of it.
it could have been sturdier. So, half of my games on my PS2 I can't play anymore because, the thing it's deteriorated so much over the years, That's what happens. Your system gets old and, and I mean, and it's packed away now anyways because I don't have the room. I don't have the space. You got to think that a lot of gamers are very young and they don't have the proper space to display 20 different consoles because you bastards don't want to make backwards compatibility. I would gladly sell my Xbox to a friend or whatever and go out on a midnight release and buy the Xbox One if you made a product that made me want to do that. But no, I'm going to stick to my Xbox 360 because you little effers can't make a product that sells me.
Yeah, and for me, the controller is an interesting concept, but I'll adapt to a new controller if I can still play my games and eventually subconsciously get into it. Controller won't matter to me if I still feel the same experience. I'd still miss the original controller, but it just seems like everything would be solved if there was a way to, let's say, I have an old game, let's say for the PS2, and if there was a way to register it online or something, which is impossible to do because they don't have the catalog now. But I mean, or there's some way to prove that you have it and then let them have it as a free download on your console. Like say, oh, here's my PS2 library. Make them all as free downloads, so I don't have to buy them all again on PS3 as downloads since you won't let me do it backwards compatibility.
I would accept that.
I would accept that because I already bought the game. I don't want to buy it again.
Legend of Zelda.
So I have to go out and it's like I have all these great old games. Let's say I have 20 or 30, games for the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and GameCube, and all these different systems. PS2. It's like, all right, I can play them all on the current consoles, but I have to pay a fee for them all over again. I'm thinking, oh yeah, all right, they're only $5 a piece, but you know what? I spent, let's see, if a lot of them were new at the time, I spent hundreds of dollars, or my mom did, on those games, and now I have to go and pay $5 a piece for all those games that I own. Some of them, depending on if they're PlayStation 2 games or something, maybe $20 a piece for all we know if they were really good hits. And then, so I rack up a couple $100, and then they're on there just for a few years before the next console war comes again. So the best and cheapest way is to keep an old console hooked up and keep the old games. So if they just had some sort of way to say, hey, here's my product, now you get free downloads for this game forever on your consoles.
Do you want to know what I want? And I mentioned Legend of Zelda. You're all like, well, where did that go? Okay, Ocarina of Time came out on the Nintendo 64, and then they did the 3D remake on the new
3DS.
3DS, yeah, thank you. And what are they gonna make it on the Wii U now? So I have to buy it for that one to get a different playing experience. How many times do we have to buy a game? How many times are you gonna shove it down our throats?
Well, that depends. That one's perfectly fine with me because it's not the same.
Well, but there was another game you were talking about, and I couldn't remember, so I used that as an example. But anyways...
But, I mean, that's an HD upgrade.
Okay,
that's completely different.
Okay, I know. I'm just using it as an example because I couldn't think of anything else.
So how about you take a game that stayed the same?
I can't think of any.
Like Resident Evil 4 or something. You got, it's like that. But, I mean, even then, I guess they qualify it as... There's an HD version now for download. It's like, why couldn't they just have a standard definition download for free if you already had bought it in the standard definition disc?
Okay, but that's besides the point. Is when are they going to make a console that is going to accept all of the previous, gen games and I never had an Xbox like an original, and I don't.
You don't plan to?
Yeah, I mean, I don't plan to because, it's just past. It's past, whatever. But, why don't you guys make a console that can accept all the previous discs and, make a controller. You have 3 different controllers for...
Or even just one universal one.
No. A controller, because the original Xbox controller was, I think that one was bad. So this is a bad example, but
Oh, how about you take the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and N64 and stuff do you know how there's the company, the Retron 3, Retron 4, and Retron 5 that puts an NES, a Super NES, a Sega Genesis, and like Atari all in one console?
Okay, all right. Let me explain this a little bit differently. I'll take the Nintendo systems, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, and the Wii. All right, and you now have the Wii U. So make like the Wii 4 and have it accept Super Nintendo and, Nintendo 64 and the GameCube. That's not a Nintendo system, is it?
The GameCube's it's Nintendo GameCube.
Oh, okay.
You're sitting right next to one.
Well, I'm not looking that way. And then the Wii, and make controllers with like a USB port, like at the end, like like with like a little extender thing, and
Just be able to take them.
and make them take them.
That'd be
Because
cool.
I mean, if I can play all of my favorite games on one console, I could have 3 consoles, and holy shit, I would be like, woohoo, let's go out and shut up and take all my money.
Yeah, because for those who don't know the Retron company I'm talking about, or the Retron 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, I have no idea what that is.
The Retron 3, there's a few of these things like this, but the Retron's the most popular. The Retron 3, they just now, no, the Retron 4 and 5 a few months ago. But it's a system that could take a Nintendo, a Super Nintendo, and a Sega Genesis game all in one. Now, because these weren't originally created by... These aren't original creations from like Nintendo and all stuff. They're not official, is what I meant to say. They're doing their best to replicate the technology. There's a few games, a very limited few that cannot be played on this Retron 3 system. On the Retron 4 and 5, they're working to resolve that because they're not using the original technology, but they're doing their best to duplicate it. So most people, when you play on these consoles, you can actually on each side. They actually have the ability to plug in your original controllers, which is really cool. So you can play a Nintendo game with your Nintendo controller, and it's also a console that takes 2 other types of games. Now there'll be 4 and 5, which will also take like Atari and something else. Unofficial. The only reason these exist is because the technology laws have passed on them long enough. That's why they still can't put a Nintendo 64 in it, because they have to wait 20 years. So we won't see that till year 2016 because it came out in 1996. But they're doing their best to do.
Only
a couple years away. Yeah. and it can take this technology. It's very compact. There's only a few glitches, so to speak, on the console because they're not official. There'll be audio glitches and a couple of visual glitches, but this is the way I've interpreted it. If you've played the games before, you'll notice, depending on what console it is, there's very few games you'll notice something is off. Like the sound isn't quite there, but you still enjoy your game. It's not going to deter enough for you to enjoy your game, but it's noticeable enough if you've played them. If you've never played the games before, most people say you'll probably never notice anything is different or wrong about them because you've never experienced it before, and you'll be perfectly fine. But if you're playing Super Mario or something, and you already knew that game, you'll notice the differences just enough that, depending on who you are, it might annoy you. But you could probably look past it because it's not that severe. So what I'd like to see is it mixes all these consoles. Well, now that we're getting at the point with, for example, the PS4, this is going to be the 4th Xbox, and now we're dealing with like the 7th Nintendo system. I'd now like to see a console that combines these things that are official products. Now I'm saying my biggest thing is hate having a Nintendo, a Super Nintendo, a Nintendo 64, a Nintendo GameCube, and a Wii hooked up. Now you say, well, the Wii can take the GameCube game, so why do I have the GameCube set up? Because I have a Game Boy Advance player in it. Because I liked doing the Game Boy Advance games on the big screen, because I don't like the Game Boy Advance that much anymore because they had poor reflective screens and bad lighting. And you can't get the attachments for them anymore. So they had this nice little Game Boy Advance slot, which the Retron 5 has a Game Boy slot, which takes the Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance. That's 3 generations of handheld in one. The Game Boy system did it great. You could play your new stuff, your old stuff on the new console every time it came out. Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance. So Nintendo did it right with the handhelds. Then you had the Nintendo DS, which took the Game Boy Color games. Unfortunately, it didn't take the previous ones, I believe, and the DS games. So there was compatibility there. Then you had the DS Lite and the Nintendo 3DS. The Nintendo 3DS will take all of the DS games. So there is a little backwards compatibility when it comes to the handhelds. So now I'd like to see, I have all these consoles hooked up. If Nintendo created an official product that could support NES, SNES, N64, the Game Boy slot, and the GameCube and Wii slot, since the Wii could take the GameCube games, had this 5-in-1 system. And it was separate from their current console, because let's say there's so much technology put in this one console to house all 5 units, or 8 units, whatever it is, that if they put this in their current gen, it would be so big or so awful. I have no problem with going out, and I'm perfectly fine with going out and buying this like 6 or 7-in-1 console and their new console. Having something that combines all the current technology, releasing one of these every couple generations with the updated one, so when a new generation comes out, you buy the new generation console if you want it. But then, you have your all-in-one system for all the previous generations. So you say, well, okay, so you have 2 products out there at once? That's weird. It's weird, but when you really think about it, if you could go out there and buy this all-in-one console, let's say you had the PlayStation 1, 2, and 3 built in as one console, plus the PS4, that would give the people what they want, to a degree. You can't put it in your current system? Fine. Well, give us at least something that reduces the clutter of all the other crap that we own. Because some of us bought everything. Or some of us want to go back and try to experience those old games, and they're floating around. And we're not going to buy your digital download crap because we have our original CDs and cartridges. That I'd be perfectly fine with. I would love to get rid of my NES all the way up to the Wii and put it into one console. Because modders have done it with the original technology. And they've made them compact and nice. But I don't have the skills to mod. At least I haven't even tried. But people have done it. And it fits about the size of a regular console. I mean, why can't they come up with an official product, even if it's not their current generation hardware, but a second product? That would be fine with me, to clear up all that crap and all the wires I have. So that way, because our room is just it's just waiting for something bad to happen.
I would like to bring up the point that if we are so far in technology, why the hell can't we replicate old technology? Like, that should just be easy. That should be, like, common knowledge to us by now.
Well, I think they can. It's just that they haven't done it.
And also, if, some average Joe can put together all of these different consoles in a
A space saver.
Space-saving way, why the hell can't companies do it?
Because they have the digital downloads.
But that's besides the point. They aren't putting all of the games that I've ever owned on digital download.
Most of them.
And they aren't back to the, why should I have to pay $5 for a game that I bought brand new 10 years ago?
Because they can.
Why should I have to?
I guess the biggest thing is they need some sort of thing. They put it out there because do you know how many people have the current consoles and they love to play old games that they've never owned or played before for the first time? They're available for download. Like, that's why it's up there. It's not necessarily targeting you. It's actually targeting the people who have never played the games before, or who have played it and want it on, and who you played as a child who no longer own the cartridge or own an old NES. Because there are plenty of people that don't have the space that we do. We don't have much space, but we still have almost everything set up. There are people with even less space than us, and they can only have one thing set up at a time, or they don't have the money to, they might have sold an NES just to get that $10 just to get by for the week because something happened, So there are those downloads. Sure, it doesn't have every single game that we grew up with, but it has a lot of them, and it has it available for new gamers, which is wonderful. But I still think there needs to be a way to figure out, if you already own a game, you should be able to have a free downloadable version of that. Now I know some games are so weird that you'll never get a digital download of it, because like Illusion of Gaia is one of my favorite games, but I don't even think that's been available for digital download at all for the Nintendo Wii, the DS. I mean, after all these years, I still don't think they got it, which is a shame. But if they got like 70% of the games on there, that would be amazing. I think there should be some sort of way that you should have some sort of system to prove that you own the game. Whether you have to take a photograph with yourself with the game or what. There should be some sort of system, and they should have some little department that people could show that they own the game or something. But the problem with that is I can't think of a good system to do it without getting scammed. Saying, oh yeah, I went over to a friend's house and let me borrow all his games. I took photos with them. I'm not saying that's the answer. I think there should be some sort of way. Like maybe Nintendo had like turn-in stations or something where you take your games that you own and you turn them in somewhere, like a bottle redemption, and you got a code that would forever let you download that on any Nintendo system. Some sort of proof of purchase where you turn in the game and they finally collect all these used games that are out there. Like, I would hate to turn them over, but at the same time, I'd love to know that I have a forever digital copy that's legally mine, that I don't have to use an emulator for, and I could have it on the official piece of hardware. And like I said, I'd like the idea of there are enough people out there that would be really cool if you, like the Retron 3, 4, and 5, they have controller slots all around the edge of it, so you could go ahead and put in the controller for the system that you want. But just imagine if Nintendo came out with an all-in-one, 7 or 8-in-1 system that did NES, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, Nintendo GameCube, Nintendo Wii, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and you had a couple slots in the front, maybe USB, and they sold official USB, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and Nintendo 64, so on, controllers that you could play these games on. I mean, it would definitely, or even have them there and have it distributed through third parties. The technology for their controllers is somewhere in their Nintendo vault. Why not give out the official one? Because some of these companies have USB ones that you can put in for emulators and all that stuff. Work with us, Nintendo. Work to help create an official version of these things. Even if it's just giving out the rights to them and having companies pay a fee to have an official Nintendo controller. So you don't have to house all of them. You just work on selling your consoles and just leasing the technology out to someone else. That would be so great. Just plug it in, because some of us, we don't want to store all these wires and all this stuff. I would easily take the idea of having all my controllers that I do, but if instead of having 5 consoles or whatever set up, having one console with one power cord, one AV cord, and then plugging in my controllers that I could keep in storage in a simple rack would be great, versus keeping all my controllers that I have now in a simple rack and then having 5 consoles with 5 power supplies and 5 sets of AV, using a splitter in order to change the channel of what I'm on. Just that alone would cure so many problems. And the Retron 3, 4, and 5 are doing that, but they're not official and they have problems. They would make so much money off of this. I bet they would sell a 5-in-1 console. I bet that would outsell everything else, I think. Because there's so many retro gamers out there. I think that would just sell, and I think now's the time to release that.
But see,
so that's my problem with today's stuff, is this backwards compatibility crap. Create a console, even if it's separate from what the current generation is, and give it to us.
But see, I
mean, they should put the backwards technology just straight in their stuff anyway, as far as the PlayStation, Sony goes, but Nintendo had cartridges. That was just for Nintendo, but for the other ones, they should be able to put backwards technology, I think, in, even if it's a second disc port, like a computer hardware, like a computer tower. Sorry.
My turn yet?
Yeah, sorry. That was my solution for the other companies, because I realized I didn't give one. A second disk drive with old technology. Why not? Just like a computer tower.
Is it my turn yet?
Yes.
Okay. Um, place. I'm gonna hit you.
I'm sorry.
PlayStation 3 started making backwards compatibility, and for whatever stupid, fucked up reason, they decided to put in a Blu-ray player. Guess what, assholes? I'm not gonna pay however much more for Blu-ray because I don't need it. I don't care. I don't know what it is. I don't need it. What I want is a console meant to play games so that I can play my PS2 games on my PS3. If I wanted a Blu-ray player, I would buy a frickin' DVD player. That's what that shit is for. If you're going to combine movies and games...
I think you're forgetting something.
What?
That these consoles came out about, 6 to 7 years ago now? You have to remember that 7 years ago, Blu-ray was introduced as the powerful DVD format. And Sony and Microsoft, there was two different kinds, Blu-ray, and then there was something else. And Microsoft put their bets on the other one, and Sony put their bets on Blu-ray. Blu-ray won, so when you go to the stores now, you have a regular copy and you have a Blu-ray copy. There was a third copy. Microsoft failed, and when they failed, they couldn't put Blu-ray in their system because after not only supporting the other format, Blu-ray is a Sony exclusive. So when it comes to DVDs and the high definition,
with the new consoles, it won't be a Sony exclusive.
Right now, it's no longer an issue because Blu-ray. Back in the day, you had regular DVD players and Blu-ray DVD players. And then the PS3 came with Blu-ray, which was the high-end technology, and Microsoft wouldn't have it. So 7 years ago, that was actually a selling point, was the idea of having the Blu-ray player that normally cost like over $100 for some at the time. Now Blu-ray players are cheap and you can get them built in.
With your game, whatever. I don't care. I have never purchased a Blu-ray piece of shit in my life because, I'll just watch my movies in normal ray, okay? I want backwards compatibility because why in the world would I give money? It goes back to the same thing. Why should I have to pay $5 more to pay for a game that I already own? Why can't I use it on the next console? That's what I want. And for the whole Xbox One to be coming out with Kinect is cool. The fact that they could possibly be watching me at any time, that's just screwed up. Like, you can guarantee me I will be putting a cloth or something over that shit when it's not in use because I don't need some creepo pervert staring at me, that's like
you can turn it off.
The biggest, I don't believe you can. I don't believe that they still, no.
You think they can remotely do it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just, it's like...
Big Brother's watching.
It's like the government says, yeah, hey, Xbox, let's strike up a deal. You make a way so that we can spy into millions of homes secretly, and we'll pay you all this money for it behind the scenes. It's like the right hand is in the cookie jar while the left hand is killing somebody. And the parents are yelling at the kid for...
listening to our phone calls that the Bush administration did.
It's kind of like, the parents are yelling at the kids about having their hands in the cookie jar, and they're not noticing the bigger picture. And you know what, though? I just said that I was going to put a towel over it. Fuck that. Unless they change the Xbox One, I'm not buying it. I'm going to stick with what I know, what I love. And so far, Microsoft, you've screwed the pooch because...
You screwed the pooch?
I don't fucking want your new system. It looks like a piece of shit.
Which also brings up another thing. We are currently get this, for most games, for what's happening, we're 2 to 3 years behind everyone else. For all the people to say, oh yeah, get in this game, yeah, we're going to get like The Last of Us and Zelda and stuff like that when they're new. But most of our games, like Red Dead Redemption, that people are like, yeah, this is great new. We can't afford to buy all these games new. So we're big used games per people. So we're like 2 to 3 years behind everyone. So I'm not even done with this generation because I realized it was too expensive to be a gamer. Because, like I said,
Which brings us back to the point where I said we are 20-somethings saving money to buy a house of our own. Not only do we not have the funds to buy a $60 game every time a new game comes out, but we don't have the space to store all this shit.
yeah. So it's a big thing. So for us, I'd love to get the new console, but there's a couple problems. One is lack of space because all this backwards compatibility stuff. We have so many games for the consoles that it's just we're running out of room. It's like 7 years ago, the Blu-ray player in the PS3, that was a selling point for a lot of people. Wasn't for us. But at the same time, now we're finally we're really reaching that point.
I have something to say.
What do you say?
You brought it up. A while ago, Jordan said to me that this is the longest stretch we've had without a new console, right?
Right, it used to be every 4 years, now it's every 7.
Okay, so that's 7 years worth of awesome games that now I can no longer play when the new console comes out. I mean, I can play them, but not on the new system.
A lot of gamers like to replay games.
So that's 7 years worth of games that are basically down the toilet.
Sort of. They're just thinking that you'll keep them set up. But the problem is now is I'm going to have a PlayStation 3 and a PlayStation 4 set up. And I'm going to have an Xbox 360 and an Xbox One set up. And these are games that are so great that you revisit them. You have a lot of them that you like to play every couple of years. And you have some of them that you play regularly. You're revisiting Mass Effect and things like that. And it's not as simple as storing the console and setting it back up. You play these with enough frequency that it's a hassle to take them off and put them back on.
But see, what
So now we're running out of space.
Why Microsoft? Why Sony? Could you think that it is okay to give us 7 years worth of amazing games and then not utilize them later on? Why not? I mean, like, what in the world were you thinking? You made all of these games, and we're behind. So if we buy the new Xbox One and, hey, we can still buy games for, if the new Xbox One, if they change it so it is backwards compatible, we could still be buying games for the Xbox 360 and still play them on the Xbox One.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we can get a brand new game for the Xbox One and play them all on the same console. That doesn't make all of these other games, like, null and void.
Like, aside from all the other weird crap about used games and all this stuff, like, I'm still going to end up buying games for the new consoles when we eventually get them, and that's the problem. Let's say you come out with a new console, $500, right? By the time we finally get it, it's probably going to be $200. It's going to be completely lower than what you tried to sell it to everyone else for. You're not getting us new. So we're going to be years behind. If you had it backwards compatible, and you had some new games I want, because it's probably going to be, realistically, 2 or 3 years in before we buy it. Realistically. And we would buy it sooner. If during those couple years there's games that we really want, we're still not going to get it because we don't want to spend that money. Because we also have no space to put them. But if they were backwards compatible and a few games came out in the course of the first 3 years that we really wanted, it would be great if we could take those other consoles, trade in our old consoles, maybe get a credit, encourage us to buy the new one, which companies do. But the problem is, with all the other things, you were given incentive to trade in and all that stuff. Well, problem is, I have all these great games. If I trade in my console, I can't play them now.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's no incentive. Like, you see what I'm saying, Sony and Microsoft? There's a problem here. I don't have the room. I have all these games. If you made it so it played those games, I would trade in my console. There's an incentive there. Of course, that's more of an incentive for GameStop, I think, because that's the used place to be. But I mean, regardless, even if I couldn't trade it in, I know that someone out there would buy it from me, which would give me more money and more of a reason to buy your console sooner than later. If I could play my old games on it, because the moment I get rid of that console, all those games I can't play. What's the point of having 40 games if then I can't go ahead and play any of them? Just make it backwards compatible, and a lot of these other issues I'll forgive you on, because I'll still end up buying certain games regardless of what they cost if I really want it. While the other stuff to connect is creepy, and used games might be whatever. If I had the Xbox One, at least I could say, hey, there's certain downloadable titles I want, or certain things that I want. I'd have the Xbox One. Now I'm not going to have it because I have no reason to buy it.
Exactly.
And the same thing applies for the PlayStation. I'm not just canceling Microsoft out here. That's the big thing, is Sony and Microsoft doing what they're doing. Like I said, we have multiple solutions to some of these things. One of them being, come out with a console, even if it's not tied in with your current generation, that is like an all-in-one reader. Or why couldn't you have not even necessarily a second console, but why couldn't you have, for example, an additional accessory? Like the GameCube had the Game Boy player. It was something you attached to your GameCube, which made it bigger, to play Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games. Why couldn't you have something like you used to have a removable hard drive on the Xbox? Have an attachment, if you want it, if you have the space for it, completely optional, that you could go ahead and buy, that would then be like an all-in-one disc reader for your old Xbox 360 games, or PlayStation 2, and PS3 games. So it doesn't even have to be a whole full-fledged console. I don't know how much space they'd have to take as technology gets better and better. Clearly the consoles aren't getting too much bigger, so the old technology must be getting smaller. Mm-hmm. Like the Game Boy player. Just have something like that. And as far as Nintendo's case, where they were a variety of shapes and sizes for all those years, create some sort of thing like the Retron 3, and maybe even buy out the rights to put in a Sega attachment on it, and make it, and work with the third-party people that sell, for example, USB controllers. And also maybe have the ability, if people have original controllers, to just hook them up. Or even if you made people have to buy, even if they were all just USB, and you had to buy an attachment that turned your thing into a USB, because those exist for the computers as is. You can put a Nintendo 64 controller into a USB. There's an attachment for it.
Well, our wireless Xbox 360 controller has a thing that turns it into a USB, but it could go into the original Xbox.
Yeah, I mean you could figure something out. You guys, especially Nintendo, there are so many consoles. There is a way. So we can reduce the clutter, because for those of us who have been playing games for anywhere from 10 to 30 years worth of gaming, you have a great load of games that we're not going to buy a second time, because it's cheaper just to replace our console and deal with maybe unplugging and plugging things back in. It's as simple as that. You're not going to get us out of this again, because then if we want to transfer or re-download when a new handheld or a new console comes out, it's just not worth it to us to rebuy or find a way to transfer every few years to a new console.
You're just pissing off your customers, dude.
You're finding weird ways to go about it.
Yeah.
It's like you're doing everything wrong and you think you're doing things right.
Hire us. We'll tell you what you're doing wrong. We promise.
Exactly. And we have solutions.
We do.
I just don't know how to prove your old games that you own them.
I would say barcode, but you could totally just go to a random store and be like, hey, barcode.
That's why I was saying there maybe have some sort of trade-in thing.
But see, I'm not going to trade in my games. That's bullshit.
See, I would trade in my games if, like I said, if then you had a forever code, and let's say you had this all-in-one Nintendo system that played all these games, and just downloaded it wirelessly over the Nintendo network, and then there it is, and you're ready to go. No more, like I said, just like with the other things, digital downloads. Just make it a free forever digital download, trade in your game. You don't want to trade it in? Play it on your original console. But if you, so that would be cool. So like I said, have it like I have a Retron 3 type console, Nintendo, where you put in all your games, or find a way. Maybe we trade in our old games, and so you get the cartridge, and you give us a code, and we have this box that then could play all the games. Let's say called the Wii U. Play our games. Just give us a code to play them. And of course, not all the games would be available, which is why I think a Retron 3 console would be worth it, because like Illusion of Gaia, I don't think is on there. So for those games, there should be some sort of official way. I don't want to use these roundabout ways. I want to work with you, Nintendo, not against you. There's still ways to collect my money that involve other means. And I guarantee it would be successful. People would go out and buy this retro all-in-8 console. And then you could sell all your old games like you've been doing, digitally available. And if you have the old stuff, you can pop them in. Because there's tons of GameCube games and Super Nintendo games that a lot of people will never know anything about. And this would help introduce them to them.
I would.
It's as simple as that. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I think that's about it for me too.
We didn't really talk too much about the Nintendo Wii U. We talked a lot about Nintendo's past. We talked a lot about the current stuff. The Wii U, we didn't really talk about. Is there anything really worth saying about it?
Well, no, because I don't really consider it part of, like, the console wars.
I guess the biggest issue for all of them was backwards compatibility.
See, it's just kind of like, Sony and Microsoft are rivals, and like Nintendo's kind of like, the own weird hippie kid who just kind of does his own thing and doesn't really give a shit about the other two. He's confident in who he is, and he's doing it.
And it doesn't
Good
have
for
the backwards
him.
compatibility with the Wii or GameCube discs. Or maybe it takes Wii games, I think. But I just don't get why the Wii could take GameCube games, but the Wii U can't. It's one of those weird things. All these companies are doing it weird. And you say yourself, the technology is getting better, so why can't they do it?
Properly.
Like, I'm not a hardware guy, but I mean, like I said, can you add a second disc port or something? Can't you run it, like, off a separate unit? I mean, in fact, that's actually how Microsoft was going to do it. Or Nintendo was going to do it with their Wii. It's also a DVD player if you bought the DVD attachment.
I don't want to have to buy attachments.
But see, that's exactly like if you could play all your old games based off an attachment. I mean, come on. Something. Work with us. I'm ready to give you my money if you do it right. Now, none of you are getting it. Wii U, PS4, and Xbox One. It's going to be years before I get those consoles. And even my love of Zelda is going to hinder me. Isn't going to hinder me from buying it. Or whatever I'm trying to say. I'm not going to buy it just because new Zelda comes out, even though I'd be desperate for it. And I want to buy that game new. But I won't even have a reason to buy the console other than that. And one game is not fully enough for me all the time. Sometimes it is, but in this case, I can't justify it enough.
I couldn't.
That's all I have to say. We covered a lot on this issue.
We did.
They definitely came up with some ideas that I've never heard anyone talk about. Like the whole idea of making downloadable games cheaper. Digital downloads, I think, are the future. And it just seems like no one's really discussing these things. And I think there's a lot to really be said as a community about these issues, rather than everyone just complaining. Complaining gets us nowhere. Come up with real solutions that people can think, that's a good idea, let's talk to the companies about it, rather than bitching at them. Because bitching doesn't get you anywhere.
No, well, we kind of bitched, but we came up with some, solutions or some ideas or...
Right, that's what I'm trying to say, is don't just complain.
Do something about it.
Right, it's like whenever you hear all these politicians arguing, they just argue back and forth. Well, how about you argue not just why it's a bad idea, but what you would do differently. It's as simple as that. You can argue about it, but what would you do differently other than, I don't like change, and I don't comprehend the fact that used games don't make the companies any money. It's
like change, but I'm really excited for the change of the console wars.
it just seems weird. Like, too many people are saying they're greedy.
I get it.
It's like they don't put the people in the other people's shoes. So I think really as a community, we need to get together a lot better to understand both sides of the aisle and come up with solutions to compromise.
Both sides of the aisle?
Yeah, that's what they say all the time.
All right,
Like
never
Republicans
heard
and
it.
Democrats, they say you reach to the other side of the aisle. It's like you have to. It's like if you took.
I guess I don't need it. I don't need an explanation. I just thought it was funny.
It's a very common term.
Anyways, guys, if you liked this rant / suggestion party, whatever, like, subscribe, pass it on to all your little buddies, and comment. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening. I've been Link584, and I definitely am looking forward to hearing what you people think about the current console wars, what ideas that we came up with and our solutions, and what you would do to help fix this whole mess, just like we suggested.
Who knows? Maybe we'll send this video off to the game companies.
Yeah, maybe they could all tweet this video to the game companies, say we have a nice lengthy discussion for everyone, and how do we honestly feel, and I bet the community agrees with us. So please let us know what you agree with, what you would change, and what you'd like to add in response to everything else, maybe that we forgot, or on top of our ideas. I'm Link584.
And I am Foisco.
And thank you for listening to the podcast.